President Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, facing fire from the left. According to Politico, Democrats aim to make Steve Bannon into a scarier Karl Rove, claiming the former Breitbart news editor is the guy who's really in charge at the White House. Getting President Trump's attention, the president very clear on Twitter, though. I call my own shots. Largely based on an accumulation of data, and everyone knows it. Some fake news media in order to marginalize lies. But every president has had key advisors who are sometimes held up as puppet masters. Back in 2006, President Bush insisted that he was no figurehead when he defended Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld against 6 retired generals calling for his resignation.
I listen to all voices, but mine's the final decision. I hear the voices, and I read the front page, and I know the speculation, but I'm the decider, and I decide what is best, and what's best is for Don Rumsfeld to remain as the Secretary of Defense.
As for former President Obama, critics have referred to senior advisor Valerie Jarrett as the shadow president. Karl Rove is former White House Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush and a Fox News editor, and even scarier Karl Rove. How does that make you feel? Is it flattering? Even scarier?
Well, look, the media get involved a bunch of myths. Back when I was the senior advisor to President Bush, I had a biography written by 2 Texas left-wing journalists entitled Bush's Brain. And look, President Bush knew exactly what that was all about. That was about using me to attack him. And many of these attacks on Bannon have to do with attacking Trump. So this is what the press sometimes does, and particularly when the Democrats announce that that's their strategy. So, I mean, I can't imagine a more worthless thing to do than for Democrats to say, we're going to come out and attack Bannon in order to make him a scarier Karl Rove and undermine Trump. I mean, telegraph what you're doing, and you know, fine, go off and do that, but that ain't going to get to the center of the issue.
It can work to a president's advantage. I mean, it's somebody to be the bad guy, to take the heat, to be the object of hate. In a lot of ways, it's pretty smart, because right now, Democrats are very focused on Bannon and what an awful person they think he is. I mean, they love to talk about that. So it can be good in that sense, right?
Well, yeah, I'm smiling because when there'd be some particularly nasty piece, Bush would laugh and say, better you than me. Yeah. And that's right. Sometimes it's better for the people around the president to take the arrows. But let's not kid ourselves. This is an effort to diminish the president by diminishing the people around him. And most of the time it fails unless there's something fundamentally flawed in that individual. You know, Bobby Baker, who had a liaison in a men's room near the White House. I'm sorry, not Bobby Baker. Bobby Baker, who had been involved in a bunch of shady dealings, and another aide to the president who was found, to Lyndon Johnson, was found having an assignation in a men's room near the White House. These kind of things got it tarnished President Johnson, because they were people whom he knew and people whom he was associated with who'd done something that wasn't political and was outside the norms.
In some ways, though, it seems like that this may be a tactic of this president in particular, to put something out there to be the object of attack while he's maybe off doing something else. Not just Steve Bannon, but also the idea that we seem to sort of have the nonsense issue of the day, the dog chasing their tail in the media. I mean, today we're talking about, you know, this issue of underreported terror attacks. Before that, we're talking about crowd size. You know, it seems like maybe in the same vein, he sets something up as the left goes crazy over it, the media goes crazy over it, and his folks say, you guys are all insane. What are you talking about? Is that a possible strategy in your mind?
Well, it is, but A, you got to be careful not to overuse it, and B, you got to be careful that it doesn't boomerang on you. I frankly think the crowd size argument, while it did divert attention from other things, I think
like
it would have been better to have it would have been better to have the attention on some of the other things he was doing, like the Obamacare executive order, which was issued on Friday and buried underneath all of this stuff. So it also, if you do this too much and you go over the top, it tends to undermine the credibility of the president and not necessarily the credibility of his opponents. So you got to be careful about doing it. I grant you that it's sometimes done. I think we pay too much attention to how often it's done. This administration is doing it far more often than other administrations may have done.
That's for sure. Karl Rove, always great to see you. Thank you, sir.
Anytime you want a scary guy on.